Hello, I'm Kat from Secretly 60 Quilts, here today to talk to you about how to use just a handful of basic free motion motifs to create this stunning fine line free motion daisy. Say that 5 times fast. I've put together a worksheet of 6 free motion quilting motifs that I use the most when doing my fine line free motion. We're going to start with the straight lines, the back and forth, then the waves, the waved points, the bumps up and down, circles, and spirals. Now you'll notice that I have 1, 2, and 3 times marks on these. That refers to the number of times that I've drawn over these lines on my sewing machine. So we've got 1 way, 2 times over, and then 3 times over to create different line weights. You can think of these line weights as pens. So you've got your fine line pen, your regular pen, and your chisel tip or thicker bold pen. Let's talk about how these line lengths affect your drawing, your fine line free motion as you're going through. So we'll start with the fine line pen. Your fine line pen will create a single thin line, not super visible, great for shading. Your regular tip, or 2 times over, is going to give you that standard size line. It's a little bit thicker, and that's good for outlines and mid-range fills. Then our chisel tip, that's going to be great for outlines and bold areas that you really need to shine in your drawing. And when they're all together like that, you can really tell the difference. Let's do a couple of examples. So we're going to draw 3 circles, 3 spheres, and we're going to use our 3 different pen weights, our line weights, to fill them differently, to shade them differently. So we'll start with the bold line, and we're going to do these all the same style. And just make it a tighter line as you go down. It's sort of spherical, close. Not quite what we're going for though. We'll take our standard and start filling that in the same way. That's a little better. That looks more like a crosshatch shadow than the alternative, where it's just kind of half a black sphere. Next we'll move on to our fine line fill. In this one it's going to be much more sketchy. As we fill in this shape, it allows much more lines to come in and more variation within those lines. You can go back through with that one off and just keep filling like that until you have a more filled in sphere. One more example I want to show you is how to use these outline, central, and fine lines to fill in a stem and a leaf. This is going to tie into our daisy in just a little bit. So we've got our outer edges of our stem. We've got the straight lines with that, and then we've got the waved point back and forth to create that leaf. Now that's all we're going to be doing with this chisel tip right now. We'll come back through with the regular point pen, and we'll just create that center stem in that medium thickness line. And then we'll come back through with the fine line and do all the details. So we'll go back and forth for the stem to fill in those ridges that exist in plants, woods, you know, all those natural elements that have some texture to them. And we can do the same thing in the leaf, echoing that shape we want to see. And of course, adjust your hands as you need to. and just that back and forth. You can still see the thicker center stem that gives it a place to come into to make it look like it's curved and has some shape to it. Now we've come back to our practice panel, our example sheet, so that we can talk about how to use these different lines in fine line free motion flowers like the daisy I'll be showing you today. As shown in the example a moment ago, these back and forth straight lines are great for stems. The waves and the waved points are great for leaves. The bumps are excellent for petals and some leaves as well. Circles we're going to use in the center. And then spirals we're not necessarily using in this design, but it helps you practice going around, coming back to a stopping point, and then going again in a different direction. And we're going to see that a couple of times when we're working on these stems and leaves. You may notice that these designs are getting smaller left to right as we go across this practice panel. That is because you will use multiple sizes and multiple shapes while you are doing this design. This sheet encourages you to practice all sorts of sizes and thicknesses, densities, and line weight as you're practicing and learning. Included with today's class are printable worksheets to help you practice these basic motifs and grow your free motion skills. Now, let's take what we've learned with these basic motifs and apply them and get stitching. When I'm getting ready to stitch a design, I tend to use a friction pen, a heat erasable pen, to draw out the basic shape of the flower that I'm going to sketch, the center of the flower, and registration points to make sure that I am going from center to the outside in a relatively straight line. Nature's imperfect, as are flowers, so we'll do our best. I do sketch out the general shape of the stem and the leaves. This one is going to be a cupped leaf, as we saw in the example. And this one is going to be a more open, flat leaf. So we're going to be starting with the flower. We start with the center, the petals, the stem, and then the leaves. Now, you may notice that I do have some sort of gloves on. These are compression gloves. I find that they help me get additional grip and keep my hands from getting fatigued while I'm going. In the meantime, let's get stitching. We're going to start with little tiny circles all the way within the center, and then we're going to go back through with additional pebbles and spirals to create that darker center. Now we have gone through, we have filled that center, but we do want a little bit more definition where there's additional density in that example that we showed. So we're going to go back through, re-pebble, and just kind of loop-de-loop-de-loop over because we don't need the definition of the pebbles. We just need it to be darker. We're not going to go back and forth because we do want to keep that organic shape to it. So let's go. We're going to keep this approximately ½ an inch from the edge all the way around. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now, you'll notice how I traveled back through that path with a little bit of waving. We don't want straight lines going through those little tiny circles to break them up. It's okay that they overlap. That makes it look like the natural inside of a flower. But you can see how that spiraling, that loop-de-looping through the middle added additional density and darkness to that very, very center. We're going to rotate it around so that we're pulling the pebbles towards and away from us. You can do this from either direction, but for the sake of video, I figured we'd just go about it like that. So now we're going to use the bumps, the up and down, and the straight lines going back and forth together to make the petals. And to do the petals, we're going to go over the lines that we draw for the outside of the petals 3 times. That gives it the outline appearance. So we're going to do a slightly wider middle, come up to the top, do a couple little wobbles, and come back down. And we're going to go back over that 3 times. On your second pass over, you're just going to kind of dip down and go back up that same line. And do that on that next divot. Don't make them the same length. And then come back down. And back up. Don't go back over those dipped down lines that we already drew. And then we'll go into the middle here. And do a couple more lines. It's fine if they're not perfectly overlapped. They don't necessarily need to be. And then we'll go back over. Go up about 3/4 of the way to about here. Pause. Come out. Make another petal. And we're going to repeat this process all the way around, making new petals where it's needed, coming down to add those definition lines. These ones I'm putting pretty close together. And then going around the edge of each petal 3 times. And once you're back at the bottom, you can pop over, add a couple lines to add shading. You can bump along these lines as much as you want to. Rotate as you go. So this one, I'm doing a new petal separate from these 2, and I will add the petal in between after I'm finished with it. From here, we're going to go around the rest of the flower. We're going to add petals as we decide to, whether they're layered behind each other or in front of each other, or both. Entirely up to you. Here is your finished flower head. You've got your darker center, lighter middle. The density of the lines within the petals make it look like it's more condensed in that center area, which it is. And then as it spreads out, the petals open up and come back together at the very tips, where you have these additional ridges like you would in an actual flower. Next up, we're going to turn this again, and we are going to use our straight line back and forth to do the stem, and the wavy lines to do the outlines of the leaves. We're going to go up the center of the leaf and back down. And this is where the spiral comes into things. We're not directly spiraling on this, but we are coming back to a point after going off in a different direction so that we can continue down the stem. Now at this point on the stem, you'll see I've got it at a bottom point. I want to make it look like it's been cut off. So it's not going to have the thick line at the bottom of the stem, which means we're going to go back over this line 2 more times. We will not go over this central line again, maybe once. We might go over this central line again, we'll see. But we are going to go over this line that we've made another 2 times. Stitching in the opposite direction. Not stitching in the opposite direction. To do that, I'm going to turn this around so that I can see my stitching in front of me as I go through. I am going to go over that one more time. So now that we have that nice thick border on that stem, we're going to travel up the middle of it using our thin back and forth lines all the way down until we reach this other side of the stem. Now this stem doesn't line up perfectly with my flower. I didn't quite plan ahead well enough for that, but that's fine. But now we've reached the approximate place where we can start doing our other stem line, our other outline. So we're going to go back down to the bottom. And then we're going to do the same thing on this other side until we come to the leaf. Now the leaf on this one is a bit different. It's cupped, it's curved. So we've got that central line going down the inside that we're only going to partially stitch after we go around this outline. We are going to stitch in that curve and add additional shading when we get to that point. Whoops. See, I forgot a center line there. I'm gonna have to backtrack again and get back to it. And that's okay. So we're back at the stem. We're gonna go ahead and go back around this one, over the edge again on this, and then continue our stem all the way up. Now, I'm not going back over that little section because it's already been gone over 4 times now, because it goes in and then back every single time we pass by it. So that's already had 4 rounds of stitches over it, so I'm just skipping it. So now that we've reached this point, we're not going back on the same lines. What we're going to do is we're going to go parallel to these ridges that we've made in really slim little lines to add in shading and depth. I'm going to rotate it like this so that we can best see it, and we're just going to go back and forth really tight, going down the direction of the leaf. See how that makes the rest of it lighter in comparison? Now you can go back through if you choose and add additional shading along the bottom as a shadow. I'm choosing not to at this time. Now, in my example, I used the outlines of the wavy leaves to echo those up until the center, where I slowly flattened out those lines. And that was that practice that we got with the wavy lines on our worksheet. So we're going to echo fill these little dinglies and then go back up the rest of the stem that we have not completed yet. Now, because I only went over the center line technically twice when I was creating this leaf outline, I'm going to go ahead and bump back over it 2 more times, just back and forth, so that we have the same thickness as the line over here and keep that as a focal point within the leaf. Like bump, and then we'll do the same waves on the other side as best we can. And then we can travel over this curved line that already exists. That's not a problem. It'll just bring us to our next center vein so that we can bump that and add in the lines around it. So you can see now that the way that we did those swoopy pointed angles really adds a lot of motion. It adds the cupped look to the leaf because they're not all going in the same direction because that's the back of the leaf. So now we're going to flip this around again and continue up that stem. And this will be just a quick 1, 2, 3 back up here, and then we'll travel down and do this other leaf. So you can see we made it up. You can see how that outside line is a little bit bolder to really show that the stem is there. So now we're going to do the same thing that we did on the inside of this leaf over in this one. We're just going to do an outline. Really quick and simple. We filled in our leaf. We're going to travel back down that vein and down to the end of the stem. Just to seal it off and make it look cut but not a dead end thick border, I'm going to go across once and then we'll be done. Go ahead and cut. And there she is, our beautiful daisy, using just a couple of basic free motion motifs.